This is a pretty in-depth guide. Feel free to skip information that you already know using this table of contents here. You can also see these contents in the description of this video. Resident Evil Outbreak is a 2003 online game. It's set in the fictional Raccoon City, takes place around the time of Resident Evil 2 and 3, and shares a similar gameplay style to both of these titles. Barely 4 years later, on the 31st of March 2007, Capcom announced they were shutting down the game's US servers, and the gameplay of the original Resident Evil games itself was now largely abandoned. Outbreak was dead, and there wouldn't be another game like it. In Japan, the game held out longer, with their servers shutting down in 2011. This gave a dedicated group of fans a little extra time to reverse engineer Capcom's Japanese servers. By 2014, the Outbreak server resurrection site went public, giving players access to an unofficial fan-made server. To play online, you will need to obtain a Japanese copy of the game. Outbreak server resurrection can't help you in any way with this. Don't bother asking them. They can, however, point you towards a guide on extracting an ISO file from your legitimate copy of the game, which is in most cases a necessary step. They can also point you towards a patch to translate this ISO file, as well as direct you to an optional memory card file with everything in-game unlocked. Most importantly, Outbreak Server Resurrection hosts the server needed to play online. You will of course need a platform to play the game on. This can be an original PS2, though such a setup is more complicated. Alternatively, you could use the PS2 emulator PCSX2 for PC. Using PCSX2 is the easiest method, though it will require what is called a BIOS file. Outbreak Server Resurrection can only point you towards the legitimate path of obtaining this file. Finally, you'll need some software to unzip some of the downloaded files. I'll be using 7-zip, which is free and open source. You should buy a copy of Biohazard Outbreak, the Japanese version of the game, online. Buying old games that are no longer in production can be expensive, however, particularly when you need a specific version of a game. Once you have a copy of the game, you'll need to extract an ISO file from it if you want to play it on an emulator. This is covered in Step 6. A less scrupulous individual might simply download an ISO file from the internet. I must stress, however, that I would never do such a thing. Doing so is illegal and bad. Only the most dishonorable of men take this path, and as such, I can't point you towards anywhere to do this. Now that you've legitimately obtained a copy of Biohazard Outbreak, you should head over to the Outbreak Server Resurrection site and register for an account. You'll need to agree that you won't be racist, vulgar, or sexually orientated. An account here is free, but you'll need to provide an email address. Some have reported issues using a Google/Gmail address, so you might want to use an alternative. Make sure to read all of the writing next to these text boxes, and don't just pretend to do for the camera like I did here. Otherwise you may end up fumbling this several times, like a donut.
You bellend!
Once this is all complete, you should soon receive a verification email at the address you provided. If you can't see it, be sure to check the junk section. Having activated your account with a provided email, you can now take part in the many threads within the site's forum. Before this, however, I'd suggest clicking on the wiki page. They have all the information, guides, and resources you'll need here. On the panel to your left, look for Get Started Here. Underneath this is a section called Playing on Emulator. Click on this and you should see all the resources needed to not only legitimately extract a BIOS file from a PlayStation 2 console, but also extract ISO files from your Outbreak disks. Having obtained these files, you can now move on to step 6. Back on the main wiki page, look again to the panel on your left. Scroll down and look for Optional Improvements and Other Info. Underneath this, click on Translation Patches. From here, click on the writing marked in red that says Translation Patches. This will take you to a GitHub page. From here, click on patches.7z to download the translation patches. The Outbreak Server Resurrection site's wiki can also point you towards a memory card file with everything in-game unlocked, along with instructions on how to set this up. I'm not personally doing this, however, as I want to unlock everything myself. I'll instead be moving straight on to applying the translation patches. For ease of use, place the patches.7z file in the same folder as your ISO files. You now need to unzip the patches file. Head to the 7-zip site and download the correct software for your PC and operating system there. I'm using an x64 based PC running Windows 11, so I'll choose this link. You should find 7-zip in your downloads folder. Double click on it. This pop-up will appear. It's not as sinister as it sounds. All programs typically ask for these permissions so that they can function. Click Yes. Click on the Install button here, unless you want to change the location for whatever reason. Click Close. If you're having trouble finding it, click the Start menu and search for it at the top of here. Double-click now that you've found it. Navigate to patches.7z and click on it. Then click on the Extract button. Click on the OK button here. Now, close 7-zip and head over to wherever you have both the ISOs and the patches folder. Place the ISOs into the patches folder and enter inside here. Enter this second patches folder. You should see another folder called Delta Patcher. Enter here and double-click on deltapatcher.exe. Next to original file, click on the Open button. You'll now have to navigate to your ISO and double-click on it. Next to X Delta Patch, there is another Open button to click on. Navigate to the corresponding X Delta file and double-click on it. You now need to click on the Apply Patch button and wait until you get a pop-up telling you that this has been completed successfully. At this point, you've now patched your games. You're ready to set up PCSX2. Head over to the PCSX2 site. In the upper left corner of your screen, click on the Download section. Under Nightly Releases, click on the Latest Nightly drop-down menu. 64-bit AVX2 will work for most modern systems. If it doesn't, you may need one of the other versions depending on your hardware and operating system. The file should be zipped up and placed in your Downloads folder. Move it to wherever is convenient and unzip it. Open the resulting folder and double-click on this file. It may be named differently if you needed a different version of PCSX2. You're not ready just yet though. Close it. Head over to the BIOS folder and move your BIOS files over here. Now you can open up PCSX2. Click on the Add Game Directory button and select whichever folder contains your ISO files. A pop-up will appear asking if you want to perform a more extensive scan of a folder/directory. This may be needed if a folder has multiple subfolders, so I'll click on Yes. There are still a few things we need to set up. Click on Settings in the upper left corner of the PCSX2 window. From the resulting drop-down menu, click on Network and HDD. Click on the box underneath Ethernet to enable it. Click on the Ethernet device type drop menu and select Sockets. Underneath this, click on the similarly named Ethernet device drop menu and select Auto. To the right of the DNS1 address box, there should be a drop-down menu. Click on this and select Manual. Inside the DNS1 address box, type in the current Outbreak Resurrection server's address. At the time of this video, it is 208.72.237.31. The address may change in the future, but can always be found at Outbreak Resurrection server's official site. You can now close the Network and HDD tab. Click on Settings again, but this time select Controllers. Click on Controller 1. You can plug in a controller now and select Automatic Binding to get this over with easily. Alternatively, you can manually bind the buttons to corresponding actions. Having set that up, you can close the tab and start up Biohazard Outbreak by double-clicking on it. There's still a tiny bit more setting up to do within the game itself, but you're nearly there. From the main menu, move down to Network Play and select it using Circle. Note that the button layout is a little unusual as you're using the Japanese version of the game. On this screen, press Circle. Don't panic if you get this screen. The game is telling you that it has found an NET file and is asking if you want to load it. Select Yes. After some waiting, you'll be placed on the connection screen. Select Network Connection. This is a simple Terms of Service type screen. Select Next. Again, don't panic. This is just an easily fixed glitch that occurs when using a hardware-based renderer. Switch to a software renderer by pressing F9 on your keyboard. Now that you can see, select Edit Network Configuration. On this screen, select Yes to input your network settings. Here, select Add Setting. Select Memory Card Slot 1 here. Press right on the directional pad to move past this screen. Select SCE/Ethernet Network Adapter by pressing Circle. Then, press right on the directional pad to move on. Press OK on this pop-up. Select Not Required here, and press right on the directional pad to continue. Select Auto on this screen, and right on the directional pad to continue. On this screen, select Auto again, and then right on the directional pad to once again move on. You can leave this as it is or press circle to choose a name that you'll easily recognize. The keyboard is quirky in Japanese, however, so you may have difficulty like I did here. At any rate, press right on the directional pad to move on once you're done. Use up and down on the directional pad to scroll through these settings and check that they're set up correctly. Afterwards, press circle to continue. It should say that the save is complete. Press circle to continue. Here you can select yes to test your connection. Press circle to start the test, then wait. Select OK to return to the network settings menu. Back out of this menu by pressing X. Here, press left on the directional pad to move to quit. Select this with circle to return to the game's main menu. Once again, select the Network Play menu. Press circle here and select yes when it asks you to load a network file. Select Net Connection. Select Next. From here, you should see the settings file you created. Head down towards it with the directional pad and select it by pressing circle. Hold tight. You're in the final stages now. Log in by entering your Outbreak server resurrection credentials in the corresponding text boxes. Be advised that this keyboard is rather quirky. Select A1 in the bottom left corner to type in English. Pressing R2 will toggle caps lock on or off. Once you finish typing your Outbreak server resurrection name, press the Start button. You now want to enter your Outbreak server resurrection password in the same way. Select Logging here. Select Enter Lobbies here. You'll have to bear with the loading screens. Don't panic. This is basically a terms of service screen. It's telling you not to cheat, behave yourself, etc. choose the option on your right.
Bruh.
I chose the wrong option and got lost in a sea of Japanese text. This is why you have to take it slowly here. Just follow the guide carefully. If you make my mistake, you can always shut the game down and try again. This is what you'll see after choosing the right option. Enter whatever you'd like to be your in-game name. It's separate from your forum name, and other players will see you as this online. You can press L2 here to use half-width letters. This will allow you to have a longer name. After selecting a name, press Start to get to the next screen. You can also end up on the next screen by accident, however, if you back out too much while trying to figure out how to use a keyboard. I got here by accident. Surrounded by Japanese symbols and starting to panic, I chose the option on my left. This confirmed my name as H, which isn't really what I wanted. That said, you have 3 name slots. You've also just completed the whole process at this point. All that's left to do is create or join a session in West Town, or use one of your other name slots to fix your mistake. Here's what to do if you put in the wrong name like me. You can back out of this screen by pressing X and return into the main menu. On this screen, go down to one of the empty slots and press Circle. Enter your new name. If you're like me, remember to do it properly this time. Remember, the option on your left here confirms. The option on your right goes back. You are now fully connected. You can move right and select West Town to select an area. After this, you can either join a room or create one. If you want to play with friends, make sure to add a password to the room you've created and let them know what the name of the room is. Once you're in game, you can switch back to a hardware-based renderer with F9. This will allow for increasing the resolution and so on.